I think this is a good list. As we're talking, I know that, somebody right now has the experience of going to their partner and they're resistant possibly to this, or they're just not going to get on it. There might be some legitimate reasons for this. Like it's not, or at least your partner's got stuff going on for them, and they probably have some really, like to them, it's legit pushback to what you're trying to do. I mean, I'm imagining right now, like, especially my first marriage, if my ex-wife had tried to bring something in, even a framework that like personality types, maybe that I would have been interested in because I'm interested in systems and models, but something that she was interested in that I wasn't necessarily tuned to. She's like, hey, this is going to help our relationship. I would immediately think it's a power play. She's trying to get ammunition to win against me.
Right.
Because that was our dynamic.
Right.
And I'm thinking, I don't think I would have seen it as an opportunity for growth. This opportunity for growth is her to connect me to some material possibly, to weaponize it and try to get me to do what she wanted me to do, because we're already, a disagreement about saying. So I'm trying to think, like, I'm kind of empathetic to the partner that's a little resistant, because I was the partner that was a little resistant in one way.
Yeah.
If she had brought something.
Yeah.
Now I'm also the partner in that relationship. It's weird. I played both roles in there. Like she would do things, but I could feel his power grabs, but I was genuinely trying to do growth work. But then if I'm honest with myself and I reflect it, I probably was also doing power grabs too,
right?
Because we're in that dynamic, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm really honest, we are probably playing a lot of games, both directions, and it's triggering back and forth.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say I was highly growth-minded person in that specific dynamic, although I wanted to be.
Yeah.
But there's legitimacy from the person pushing back, I guess. That's the point I'm trying to make. And I think that we could also talk about, why would they want to push back?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
So you might be a person who does feel like you're doing the majority of the legwork, that you're doing the growth and you're trying to convince your partner to do so as well. And they've got some, they're throttling, they've got some resistance. And as you said, you might be in a dynamic with them where they experience it as a power play. I think that's not uncommon. And so I think a smart thing to do is to ask what is the dynamic here? Is it one of growth and development? Is it one of trust, mutual trust and vulnerability? If it's not, then that's a very understandable reason for somebody to dig in their heels, is to go, you're just trying to get me under your thumb. And that could be valid. I think another reason that a partner could throttle or to be reluctant or resistant is a fear of change, right? If you go, no, we need to grow in our relationship and do all this personal development work and we need to change. It's like, okay, well, what if I like the relationship, or what if I like who I am, or what if I like who you are? What does growth and development actually mean? If you're not a personal growth person, that sounds like becoming a different person, right? You want me to become a different person? Why would you want that? It's like, don't you like who we are? I think it's a misunderstanding of what growth means, but you might be approaching it in a way where it kind of sounds like you mean that the person should be changing. And then that also leads to a bit of like, well, what, am I not enough? Right. So there might be kind of an offense, right? Like, are you saying that I'm not enough for the relationship? What do you think I need to grow and change? And you could even say like, no, I need to grow and change too. But it's like, okay, but you get to decide that for yourself. When you're saying it for me, I might take that as an insult or an offense. Like, what do you mean I need to change or grow?
Yeah.
So I think those are understandable reasons why somebody might give some pushback.
Well, and in some ways it's unspoken, but you're inserting a meta frame over top of the relationship, that this is the reality that I see in front of us, and we both have to buy into it. We both have to be growing right. and changing and striving. And that's definitely a perspective. That's definitely that's an assumption you're making. That's definitely a worldview you're bringing, that not everybody has that worldview.
Yeah.
And your partner certainly may not have that worldview.
Well, they might genuinely believe that the relationship is fine.
Yes.
Like they might not see the problems that you're seeing.
And they are fine.
Yeah, they're fine. You're fine. The relationship is fine. So they might be confused or unaware of what you're even, what problems you're observing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it is something that we have to, I think that's the other thing that people push back on, is we have an unconscious sense that we're being reframed into a place where we can't escape. Right? Like investigative reporters always do this. They try to pin the interviewer in where they can't wiggle out of a question or something. They're framing it just right to get that answer that's going to be binary, that's going to really showcase that person interviewing in one light or another, right? They're framing it just right.
Yeah.
And we kind of are in this world now where framing is very much
a weapon.
It's like everybody's trying to out reality worldview each other. Like, okay, no, this is the real reality worldview. You should be seeing it from this angle. Right. It's like shifting the perspective and the framework we're using. And I think we're starting to get a sense, because it's especially been weaponized unknowingly for years, we're all of a sudden realizing, wait, that's been happening for a while. And so I think people are getting savvy to this, and they're kind of, even if they don't need to, I've noticed people are like reflectively against it. Mm-hmm. Like somebody will watch one of our podcasts like, oh, what is this BS, like hairy-fairy energy, tune in and just like, like they project all this thing onto us because someone else is trying to do this somewhere else in their life.
Yeah.
And they assume we're trying to do the same thing just because we're using similar words.
Yeah.
So your partner also might have heard something in the zeitgeist, a framing, attempt to push them into a corner and frame them in some way. They're like, I'm not gonna let that happen in my relationship.
Yes.
And so they're reflective, they're reactive, they're pushing back, and it has nothing to do with the relationship, has nothing to do with them or you, has nothing to do with the content or the growth you're after. It's them ensuring that you're not trying to do that thing that was done to me at work at that class I had to attend to, or whatever the thing is that they didn't like.
Or that thing that a previous partner tried to do to me.
Yeah, even more so.
Right?
Absolutely. Like, yes.
They've got unresolved past experiences from other relationships. They might be like, yeah, a previous partner tried to do this to me. And then now whatever that person's motivation intent was, which is different than yours.
We had this when you walked out of the room in the early days in a relationship.
Yes.
My ex-wife used to just end the conversation and would never resume it. And so I was like, you can't do that. You can't just walk out. He said, I'm not leaving forever. I just need to go clear my head.
Right.
Get myself centered. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
I rested into that, but I had to learn that's how your style is.
Well, because you would follow me and I'd be like, I just need a minute.
Yeah. I'm like, no, we got to resolve this. And so I learned that wasn't you trying to frame me or control. You were actually doing what you said you need to do. Go get a good space for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You weren't lying about that.
Well, because fights emotionally overwhelm me.
Yes.
I get filled up it's almost like I can kind of feel my emotion barometer filling, and all of a sudden it goes ding, and it's like, okay, you officially cannot think anymore. So I'd be like, I have to leave the room. I have to go wash some of this emotion out so I can get my brain back.
Yeah.
And you thought because of previous relationship, I was just ending the conversation, and I'm like, I'm not ending it. I promise. I just don't have my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we had to work through that. We had to get code words, but initially, it's very easy to it's inevitable for us to bring, it's expected and inevitable for us to bring the baggage of our previous relationships in. So, there could have been that whole idea of like, they're just trying to gain power, or they're just trying to say this thing that actually could be like a repeat of a previous pattern that they're bringing into the current relationships. And you kind of have to be aware of that.
Yeah. Are we saying that, your partner really does want to grow? It's just all these other reasons. No, your partner might be a dipshit. Like they might be they may not want to do anything. They might be exactly how you see them. But I think what we're trying to do is expand the framework here to say, well, just do a double check. Maybe there's other reasons why your partner's resistant besides them just not wanting or being completely against you.
You said words very fast. I'm assuming you didn't actually see. I heard you say, no, your partner might actually be a shit.
Dipshit.
A dipshit.
Your partner may actually be a dipshit. Yes. But we're not saying they're not. But we're saying just do some safety checks before you totally go down the road of, okay, I just don't want to grow.
That's right. Yeah, no, like,
sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know why I'm like mumbling fast. I think my ideas are coming faster than my words can match.
Right. Well, and I think we don't know you or your relationship or your situation, but like you said, these are safety checks. They're like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Right. And their reluctance might be something that I think the reason why we're talking about these is because it might be overcomeable.
Yeah.
It might be something that is just kind of stalling them. And you read it as a massive barrier, but it might be something that a little bit of investigating, a little bit of talking about it, a little bit kind of trying to figure out what's going on might make it so that that you can address the reluctance as opposed to, like you said, just kind of shrugging and giving up.
I want to tune into this thing. When I said earlier in my previous marriage, I was like, I'm probably also playing some games, which if I'm honest with myself, like, if you talked to me at the time in my relationship, I would have reported that I was wanting to grow. She wouldn't.
Right.
It was one-sided.
This is just her.
She wouldn't I was working hard. I was doing everything I could.
Yeah.
now years later, 15 more years later, I'm looking back going, okay, I have to take on a lot of responsibility in areas I didn't at the time. With hindsight and maturity, I bet I created a lot of dynamics that I wasn't aware of. I bet I was bringing a lot of more crap to the situation than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I bet I was unwilling to move or change in ways that I didn't realize at the time. And I bet you in a lot of that, I was projecting onto her, even my own insecurities, unwillingness, and inability to grow or something.
I undoubtedly was in my first, yeah. I mean, my ex-husband probably I think he listens to the podcast. So I just want to say right now to my ex-husband who's probably listening to the podcast, I absolutely brought almost all of it. Probably at this point. Like there was so much projection going on. There was so much blame. There was so much like me thinking I was working hard and like, oh.
So let's tune into that. What's going on in that scenario?
Can I just mention a couple more things that I think are relevant to the reluctance? Because I think...
You mean for the partner?
For the partner, like reasons why the partner might be reluctant. Because I do want to talk about what also underlying issues could be going on for the partner who thinks they're doing all the work. I do want to get to that. But I think it's really helpful to diagnose what might be going on for the partner who's reluctant.
Yeah.
So is it okay if I mention just a couple more? Okay.
What if I said no? What are you going to do?
Move on.
I don't know. All right, we'll just talk about the next thing then. Of course, we a lynch mob of listeners like, what was she going to say, Joel? Why would you say no? I have to. You framed me right now into having to say yes, didn't you?
I've been manipulating you the entire time. That's right.
Happens?
This is just a little. This is part of my 10-part gaslighting plan. No, the reason why
you caught me right where you want to be.
I mean, I always assume that you have like an instinct for the energy of the conversation and how much time we're spending. So usually I just kind of go with where you're like, okay, we need to move
now you're
on.
being insulting. You don't have the energy of the conversation, Joel. I see what you're doing. I see how you're setting me up.
All right, fine. I'm just gonna say whatever I want to, and you'll deal with it.
Love of the nonsense. Go back to what we're gonna say about so this is the person, this is the partner that's getting into the perspective of what might be going on for your partner. If you feel like you're one-sided,
that's right,
and you have the statement for yourself, we talked about, I'm the only one who wants to grow. Mm-hmm. Why do you feel that way? We talked about that.
Right.
And now we're talking a little bit about your partner. When you say, I'm the only one who wants to grow, what could be going on for them? We talked about a few things. You have a few more.
Right. Why could they be reluctant to all your offers of growth or getting into personality type or getting into whatever, maybe it's like we should go to counseling or we should be in therapy or we should go do this retreat or we should go through this program together or whatever it is. And if they're just feel super reluctant, we've been talking about some reasons why they might, right? They could take it as an insult. What do you mean I got to change and grow? They may be totally happy with the relationship, right? They might not see a problem. They might have unresolved past experiences that are making them think that, it's like, oh, you're just like my previous boyfriend or girlfriend or wife or husband or whatever is going on.
Well, I mean, I know somebody that's, they brought to their partners like, I think we should grow. I think we should have an open relationship. I think it would help grow us. It's like, Of course they're going to probably resist to that.
Yeah.
Like it depends also what you're saying is growth.
It depends.
The content matters.
What you are putting forward for sure.
For them to be like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Yep. Yeah. A couple other reasons though, because I think this is one that it's like, why would my partner feel this way? One is that it could be overwhelming to suggest doing so. Like there might be a lot going on in their lives or your lives, right? As a couple. What if you have kids? What if you have stresses at work? What if your life is already overwhelming and now you're suggesting to take on this like major project of a relationship?
Yeah.
That might be too much. There might be a fear of vulnerability, right? It's like, what does this mean to get into all this growth and development? Does that mean I have to like unearth all this, childhood trauma? Or do I have to expose things that maybe I don't feel comfortable, getting into myself? Much less with another person. So there might be some fear of vulnerability, which growth helps us work through. That's one of the keystones of growth and development is learning how to be vulnerable. But to a person who hasn't done it, that sounds terrifying, right? And so there might be some of that going on, which is understandable and legitimate, some of those fears. There could be a fear of failure, right? Like I tried, but I failed. And now not only do we have problems, but you also see me as a person who can't do anything about them, right? So there could be a fear of failure going on for them. And there could be a sense of loss of control, like you mentioned. Like what's going on here? Like what is really being put forward? Like what am I agreeing to? And so I think not that we have to go down the rabbit hole of all of those, but there could be more going on for your partner than you realize. So when you put these things forward and they're reluctant, again, there might be value in diagnosing Not that they are reluctant, but why they're reluctant. What's going on for them underneath? And to have some sympathy for that, right? To have some like real genuine, maybe even empathy for why they might feel that way. And that it's not that they don't care about you and don't care about the relationship and don't want to improve and don't want your life to be better. I mean, if you're still in a relationship with somebody, not all relationships. Some people are in relationships with people who are definitely set it and forget it, right? They're like, I partnered up. That was my only one thing. Now I don't have to think about anything. And there are some like legitimately bad people who are just awful in a relationship, right? And awful to be with. But if you love your partner and they love you, right? And like going off of the premise that everybody's well-intended here, but they're reluctant in this way, maybe you can have some sympathy for why, right? Because it might be like a legitimate concern and understandable one.